Fans, we are back live on the Hannibal TV on YouTube with another news podcast for you. I like to call it Hannibal TV this week, but we're doing so many of them. We're just going to call it the news podcast, but it's the news source and commentary that you can only get here on the Hannibal TV. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I am joined today, as always, by the godfather of the Hannibal TV, the OG himself. Hannibal, how are things down there in lovely summer-like weather?
It was almost 30 degrees yesterday, if not 30. And I actually did not turn on the air conditioning yesterday. And it took me a while to fall asleep, so I'm just getting up. So if we're 5 minutes late, it's because I was woken up and was like, oh my God, I got to do this. We're Central Time here, so it's only 11:10. But and I will be heading back to Canada very soon, where I will be running into you in Canada. But the reason why we are doing more podcasts is because I have been kind of bored with the wrestling news lately. There are some good tidbits today we're going to check into, but I'd rather talk about it with someone like Jack and check in with you fans, get your opinions on stuff, than just straight read it. So going forward here on the Hannibal TV, where if you're not subscribed to the Hannibal TV, definitely subscribe, because not only do I have a Brutus Beefcake interview tomorrow, yesterday Jack had Pat Tanaka. This coming week, I'm going to be following around the fighting icons in Las Vegas, and that includes Mark Kerr, who The Rock is doing a movie on, Butterbean, Dan Severn, my good buddy Tank Abbott, and you could say Severn's my friend too, Don Fry, and Josh Barnett. And Rick says he's going to make sure that I capture the first meeting between Don Fry and Tank Abbott. And by the way, Don Fry also didn't like Mark Kerr, for anyone that remembers my interviews. Mm-hmm. He actually hated Mark Kerr as much as he hated Tank Abbott. So that should be interesting. They'll be signing autographs at WrestleCon. So they're going to be there from next Wednesday night. I'm going to start this until next Monday morning. So that should be very interesting back in fabulous Las Vegas. So I'm looking forward to that. I will not be attending WrestleManias, but I will be attending a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be absolutely epic. I wanted to ask you before we get into the items that we had here. The sales for WrestleMania Night 1 and 2 are still lagging behind. They've made a little bit of a comeback according to some sources online, but they're still shaping up to be a very lackluster attendance. I shouldn't say lackluster. For WrestleMania standards, a lackluster attendance. And a lot of people are citing the build to WrestleMania along with the exorbitant ticket prices. Do you think that if this WrestleMania is one of the lesser drawing events in its history, shaping up to be behind only WrestleMania headlined by Hogan and Slaughter, do you think the corporation TKO will take another look at charging $8,000 for ringside seats?
Yeah, again, the fan-friendly Triple H charging more for tickets than ever. But I think that just, to me, I understand why they're doing 2 nights, because they're getting money from Las Vegas. For one thing, to come Easter weekend, for the people wondering why it's Easter weekend, this is traditionally a slow weekend in Las Vegas. So not only are they charging more, they got money from Las Vegas specifically to come this weekend. And I know there's less than 40,000. One of the nights just over 40,000, the other. It says, I was at that arena recently. It says right out front, Wi-Fi for up to 65,000 people. So they're considerably under, but to me, they don't have a card worthy of 2 nights. And back a couple years ago, you would only have to pay less money to see a condensed 1-night show of the best of the best. Now it's watered down to 2 nights, and you have to pay 2 times to watch the full thing. And to me, I mean, this is just my opinion. The only one I care about knowing who wins is the Cena versus Cody Rhodes. That's the only one that's piqued my interest a little bit. I know after the work that Stratton and Flair did a couple weeks ago, they successfully got interest. That's the role of wrestling companies: make you suspend your disbelief and get interested in an angle. They did that successfully with the Charlotte Flair. My hat's off to Triple H for that. But to me, I don't want to watch that match at all. There's nothing, unless Ric Flair manages Charlotte, there's nothing about that match I want to see personally.
Yeah, I would agree. The other thing that some of the critics are pointing out is too many multiple man matches. You've got 3 ways, you've got 4 ways for the Intercontinental title, and they historically don't draw as much interest. But I guess we'll see. It's imminent anyway. Speaking of the WWE, just a quick note to get your comments on. I know you've spoken on it briefly, but it seems to be picking up speed, and that's the criticism of the Legacy Hall of Fame inductions. They announced this a couple days ago that Dory Funk Sr., Ivan Koloff, and Kamala would be put into the Legacy wing, which you pointed out does not merit an actual induction on television. And it seems to be one that's causing a lot of consternation with the fans, considering Michelle McCool's there for a full induction. And one of the fans interacting with you on a broadcast I saw pointed out that only the dead people go into the Legacy wing, but I immediately thought of Rick Rude getting a full induction by his family, and Mr. Perfect, and a few others that I can remember. What are your thoughts on this controversy? Because it seems to be picking up some steam.
I could understand a Legacy wing if it was guys like Barry Horowitz or the Brooklyn Brawler, people you don't really care about. But Bruiser Brody is in there. I mean, I'm sorry, but I was a Kamala fan. I used to have, say what you want about him, I used to have nightmares about Kamala. He petrified me when I was a kid. I don't think Typhoon accomplished more than Kamala. I personally think Typhoon sucked. The Natural Disasters basically wrestled 2 teams, the whole thing. Money Inc. and Legion of Doom. Never had a memorable match. Name me one good tugboat match. And everything he did in WCW sucked, and he didn't do anything after WCW. Kamala was a memorable character in WWE, WCW, Mid-South, World Class, and he had a long career. I wrestled him in 2007, and he wrestled and drew on the indies right until the time he lost his legs. So to me, Kamala, one of the most memorable wrestling characters in Memphis. He was invented in Memphis. He drew in Memphis too. He drew everywhere. And again, I think the best match I've seen recently, the most entertaining match, was someone on Facebook posted George Steele against Kamala. Yeah. And that's like the ultimate character match. And to me, I mean, I wrestled Kamala too. That's one of the highlights of my career because I was a fan of his. So to me, and there was a packed house at Murphy's Inn in Cornwall that night that I defeated him. And he was a great guy. I interviewed him too. Sadly, he was sick and he lived in a trailer. We needed to keep the air conditioning on, so it messed up the sound. That was one of my most angering interviews when I ended up hearing the sound on that. But I considered Kamala a friend, so I take it personally that Tugboat, who sucked at promos, he was a big fat guy. That's what I'll give to him. And he was Earthquake's partner. Earthquake, he had a successful feud against Hogan. He drew against Hogan. He did do okay in WCW. He came back as Golga. To me, Earthquake, and he was a Canadian national champion, sumo champion. To me, Earthquake deserves it, but you don't just say, oh, well, this guy was Earthquake's partner on a team that was what, let's admit it here, was that not one of the low points in tag team wrestling when they held the titles? There was like 3 teams. and maybe the Beverly Brothers were around for part of it. I really don't remember, but they basically wrestled Money Inc. And Legion of Doom over and over and over again. And at some point they broke up, and they never even the match sucked, or the feud was so little over. They didn't even have a blow off match from their breakup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you make valid points there, especially with respect to Kamala, but also Ivan Koloff, a very important figure in
He
pro
was
wrestling.
over at one point in time. They were thinking of having Ivan turn on Billy Graham to turn Billy face. Billy even told me that he was
Mm-hmm.
over, but I think it was Shane Douglas that said he had some type of nuclear heat with Vince McMahon. But to me, Ivan, I mean, he's one of the classic characters. I get it. He's been gone for a long time, whatever, but like, keep the legacy win for the Brooklyn Brawlers of the world. The guys that, okay, we acknowledge you did good, but you don't quite deserve like a real Hall of Fame shot. Don't put Bruiser Brody in there, Luna Vachon.
Yeah.
Like that's just saying, okay, Tugboat deserves a ceremony. You don't deserve a ceremony. To me, Luna Vachon accomplished more than Tugboat. Brody accomplished more than Tugboat.
Yeah, I can't say that I see that changing though, because let's face it, it's a political entity, and it went from Vince making all the calls to Triple H, who didn't know, as you pointed out, that he's not being. That was a complete.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that people, again, they'll say wrestling's a work, but oh, it was real. The Charlotte Flair thing, that was real. Oh, and when when Triple H goes on Jimmy Kimmel, and the headline is Triple H did not know he was going in the Hall of Fame, that's real. Triple H is in charge, and I'm not saying he's not deserving of it, but he's in charge of the whole Hall of Fame. So you people are believing that he had no idea he was the head in the whole planning of the Hall of Fame. Nobody told him, by the way, you're going to be the headliner of the Hall of Fame this year. I don't know. I don't believe that for a second. And I don't care. But for the people that just buy it hook, line, and sinker, I mean, yes, there is still kayfabe in wrestling, folks.
Yeah, speaking of future Hall of Famers, most likely it was announced, I guess, in the Observer this week that Chris Jericho is taking time off from AEW, and originally this is for a tour for Fozzy, but he did have Wednesdays off, and he was supposed to work Wednesdays for AEW, but now, according to Dave Meltzer, he felt that it was time to take a break. There's no immediate time frame for a return, and Meltzer is saying if it was up to him, he would encourage him to make a triumphant return back to WWE and have that one last great run, setting up a Hall of Fame induction. I think if he's going to go back, the time is now. And no disrespect to Jericho, but he's clearly lost a few steps the past few years, and this would be the time to pull the trigger. I think contractually he's locked up for a while, but as we've shown with people like William Regal, that can be a fluid situation. Your thoughts on that, Hannibal, about him returning to WWE?
Kempicher is not in the Hall of Fame for the guy asking. The interesting thing, Jericho, yeah, I mean, he's been a staple of AEW, and even though he's one of the highest paid guys there, yes, he's taking time off now. He's going to be one of those guys getting paid to do nothing, one of the many. He was actually working for his money, whereas a lot of the people in his pay category don't do all the shows or anywhere near as many of him. I agree with Meltzer, and I said this before. When he first went to AEW, it was good timing. AEW was hot. He was defecting. He wasn't as stale as he is now. Now he's stale to the point that AEW isn't even going to Winnipeg this year. And last year, I don't even think they had 7,000 in a 20,000 seat building in Winnipeg, which I believe was the only television wrestling taping in Winnipeg last year. And whereas the previous year, it was almost full. And then they go to this year, they're not even going to Kenny Omega, Don Callis. Winnipeg is like one of their Canadian bases, and they're not even going. In fact, I don't think either AEW or WWE have any upcoming dates in Canada for whatever reason, other than if you want to say TNA, which is technically a Canadian company because they're part of them is based here. I don't know how much WWE owns or controls now, but part of them is still owned by Anthem, which is based in Toronto, and they're coming to the Toronto area at some point. But to me, yes, I don't know exactly when Jericho's contract expires, but if I were him, I would test the waters somewhere else and like go out with more of a bang than a whimper because people are just sick of it. Like people, to me, there's no appeal to seeing Chris Jericho in AEW anymore. It's just another reason not to watch.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much, although he's got a lot of credit and rightfully so for reinventing himself, he's just about done all that he can in that company. I agree with you. I did like that Le Champion run when AEW was in its infancy, but definitely would be the right move for him unless he's loyal to Mr. Khan.
I think if they offered him so much money, which they're already paying him probably more than WWE would pay him, but if they offered him like just so much money not to go back, he would probably take it. But I think it's about more than the money to him. Like he has enough money than he's going to need. He does also have a lot of control. Like if it wasn't for AEW, he's grown on me. But Luther, his buddy, has had a job all these years. He had a lot of pull. I believe he had a lot of pull of who gets hired. He had full control of his angles, from what I understand, just like Moxley does. But I mean, I think the time is now to go. Um, I don't think AEW by the way, they have like 20 titles. None of them are really over. It came out in the news. The first thing I wake up this morning, Tony Khan is introducing a pure women's title. So I don't think the solution of adding yet another belt that's not going to be over to this other brand of AEW's is going to help them get over anymore either. But I'm glad they're around. At least it's getting everyone's pay up. The lucky people that are involved in any of those two companies, they're making more money than ever. But I will say this: this is 100%. Wrestling is not as popular right now than it was a year ago. It's not. You cannot say Cody Rhodes' reign is more popular than Roman Reigns. It is not more popular now than a year ago. It's actually on a downward trend at this point. I'm feeling that myself, but like I can tell I've got the vibe of the wrestling world. They got to do something. Both companies have to do something to turn up the heat because this WrestleMania, what the hell was the point of having The Rock at Elimination Chamber? Like, what the hell was the point of that? Other than for something good for Toronto, then he just disappears again after. And so far, we're what days away from WrestleMania, and there's no news of The Rock. But they still want people to pay 10,000 a ticket. I don't know. To me, you gotta have Brock Lesnar one night and The Rock one night at least. And Lesnar, as you said, is saying he's retired now, but he is still under contract apparently. Hello, Isbin.
Yeah, I before we leave the new women's title story, Tony Khan announced that last night in following Collision that he's introducing a third women's title. ROH now has 8 titles. I couldn't even begin to name them all or who has
All I
them.
know is Jericho had one of the titles at one point that he just lost to somebody. I don't know who he lost to, but the only one that is semi over is the main one. So don't dilute it. Why is today in wrestling? Let's just keep adding more. Let's just build on what we have and make what we have better. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and Tony is in love with tournaments because he announced that this will be the new Pure, and I guess Pure has specific rules that kind of escaped me, but something to do with closed fists and that sort of stuff. But
Well,
it will be.
closed fist, is that not supposed to be a rule? Or like the referees are always supposed to enforce the closed fist. But yeah, when you get into titles with specific rules, I mean, it just gets so complicated. And I don't know. It turns me off. But God bless these people that are making the money. I'll happily take one of those contracts, and I'd be over. I'm saying this, and it's the honest to God truth. I would be one of the more over people in AEW, legit. I'll happily take one of those contracts, but I'm not a fan of the current product. There's certain people that I like in there, and I am jealous that I don't have one of those contracts. But to me, I'm just there's nothing making me want to watch at this point. I can't. The last thing I really enjoyed of AEW was when the Hardys reunited. It was that long ago, and that ended up being a flop. They've done more in TNA than they did in AEW.
So, Tony, if you're listening, you need to introduce an ROH hardcore title and or brass knucks title or something along those lines. And Hannibal's your man. But what I find interesting about Tony as well is he's in love with tournaments. This one is going to be decided at Supercard of Honor on May the 2nd in Atlantic City. He just loves booking tournaments, and they don't. They're just not doing well. So he needs to
Tournaments
find a new.
honestly have never done well really in wrestling. WrestleMania 4, a lot of people say, was one of the most boring ones because people don't like fake tournaments. Like if it's a real, yes, like, but if it's fake, it's like this is not real, guys. Like it's not. It's just the booker deciding who's going to win. So who cares? And Isbin, yes, you're mentioning. The big match against Super Crazy. Ric Flair is also going to be on that card. You are correct. He is appearing Philadelphia May 3rd. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I think the AEW thing is in Atlantic City, but Philadelphia. I mean, I'm looking forward to this match, and I think people are going to enjoy my match. But we've talked about this to death. But Jack, you're going to be there too for this.
Well, yeah, and we're doing on a programming note the next in our continuing series of countdown to TWA One and Done. Myself and Chubby Dudley will be interviewing a man who is in the main event for that show. He will be competing for the last ever TWA Heavyweight Championship, and he was the last TWA Heavyweight Champion, and that would be the Heart Killer Chris Wilde against Breaker Morant. And fans, if you haven't heard of Chris or are unfamiliar with his work, he's a very talented 20-year veteran, a staple on the Northeast scene, and he's got a lot to say about the promotion so far for the show, and he's feeling that he is being ignored, and he's going to have a lot to say. So that is going to be a very entertaining episode tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Eastern. Want to move on to an individual that was cited last night in the interview that I did with Pat Tanaka, and that's Sunny. She, I guess, settled out of court this week for $5 million for damages to the individual that she killed while driving under the influence. And she is going to, I don't know how that money is going to happen. Maybe it's a token gesture, but she's going to remain incarcerated through 2039 at this point. She had some, which you brought to my attention before the interview, Hannibal, not very kind things to say about Pat Tanaka. And Pat, I guess, who was very forthcoming in the whole interview, told it like it was about that situation.
Yeah, there's only two things I can think of for that 5 million. One, well, for one thing, I did ask one of my lawyer friends, Brian, about this, who might be watching this. He said a $5 million car insurance is unusual, depending on what type of car he had. I don't know what type of car it was that she crashed into the guy, because she stole her boyfriend's car. She was not supposed to be driving due to her whole series of suspended licenses. it's the whole situation is sad, and I feel bad for her and the person because addiction is horrible. But she was not even supposed to be driving, so I can only imagine that this guy whose car she stole had some type of insurance policy, and that insurance policy settled it. And maybe future, I don't know what kind of a Legends deal she has or royalties deal. I don't know, but it's a mystery to me how she settled. But it is a settlement, and there's not usually a settlement unless there's some proof of the money being up there. So I can imagine the money is either from insurance or some type of payment plan. But she's going to be in jail till 2039. So Jack, maybe you better uh, head over to New Jersey and get an interview with her.
Yeah, I think I'll probably pass on that one. I think her story's been well documented. But what did you think of Pat Tanaka's response to the kind of out of the blue comment she made about him a couple of years ago, where she said that he stole Chris Candido's car and stole money, etc. And then
Then
Pat
she
had his
sells it.
response.
Well, then she does the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Pat had
Uh,
his response last night, and fans
he
said,
seemed
"Yep,
fairly open about his demons and stuff,
yeah,
but he basically said he was one of the guys trying to warn Chris about her, and whether he liked it, I mean, his brother will deny it, but I mean, you got to believe he must have known something, and some people do get off of their girlfriends messing around with other guys, particularly if they're good looking guys. So that's a thing out there, people. I'm not into it, but it's I've come to learn through the internet that there's an actual fetish of people that like their girlfriend to be with other guys. So that's my theory on why he stayed with her. And also, I mean, this he seems like a nice guy, but he wasn't actually the coolest guy in the world. Let's face the facts here. That's probably the hottest girl he was ever going to get. And she is famous. At one point, when she was maybe 1996, Sonny, maybe it's worth having her bang around on you just to say it's your girlfriend. Honestly, maybe I would have put up with it at 96. Maybe I would have because she was at that level. But in the later year, like by the time I saw her in person in 2008, she was beyond anything that I would find attractive, and she was already a horrible person by then too. Horrible person. And by the way, we have crossed 428,000 subscribers. By the way, I'll thank the fans to that. Someone's bringing up YouTube. Someone's bringing up in my interview with Metal Maniac, who is a questionable person. There's some nice things about him, but let's be honest here. He does tell some stories. He claimed that he overheard them at Survivor Series '96. Possible, possible, but I don't know. I'm on the fence about Metal Maniac. He's he's a nice guy. He has done some good interviews, but is he 100% truth 100% of the time? I don't know. But Don Morocco did confirm the Dynamite Kid was beating him up in England, and he did confirm that Metal Maniac called Don Morocco and asked him to please tell Dynamite to go easier on him, which I guess Dynamite did. So that story we have confirmation from the original Rock himself that it is true. And by the way, I got two great interviews with Don Morocco, who is another one of the great guys. And someone was asking who we're interviewing next. Brutus Beefcake tomorrow, I'll be interviewing, as well as Pat Rose, the territory wrestler. So I got two interviews coming up tomorrow.
yeah." We've got a lot of stuff in the works. We're gonna be focusing on providing more top tier talent and interviews, territory guys, all the stuff that you fans of the Hannibal TV have come to expect, and some interesting developments in the business in the weeks to come that we'll be talking about later.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, for anyone tuning in, I am going to be following these guys around at WrestleCon. So I'll be doing these. Marty's already checked in with me. It says, "Hey, make sure you find me, do an interview with me while you're there," and we will be getting some interviews. at the TWA One and Done. May 3rd in Philly. There is 3 shows at ECW Arena in Philly. It's the May 3rd show that we're going to be at, and that one is by far going to be the best. And I'm not just saying that. Looking at the cards on all 3, and as far as what's going to be the most historic, be there for the May 3rd. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, 100%. The controversy, if you want to call it that, around who's going to induct Lex Luger to the Hall of Fame has been settled, and it's not going to be Sting, as there was such a demand for, if you will. It's going to be Diamond Dallas Page, who Luger credits with improving his quality of life. I guess the heat between the organizations, or at least Tony Khan and WWE, is somewhat legitimate, because I guess they didn't even really have discussions about it, and Tony certainly didn't offer up Sting for that. Notwithstanding, the issues with Luger that you've highlighted in the past. Do you think this was the wrong move by AEW to not be gracious and say yes, his best friend for 40x years could be made available?
From my understanding, it's unknown whether Sting even asked. Like it came out that Luger asked Sting, but it was never confirmed or denied whether Sting. I honestly believe this. Here's my honest opinion of it: that Sting didn't ask Tony Khan because he's getting a ton of money, and why give WWE? It's just a TV show in the end, the Hall of Fame. It doesn't really mean anything. All it is a TV show. It would get people talking about WWE if Sting appeared as an AEW guy in WWE. So it wouldn't be good for AEW's business. And Sting not appearing, I think it's going to fizzle out pretty quick. People are going to forget about the whole Hall of Fame thing pretty quick because the ceremonies are usually pretty boring. So I think Sting made the right call there by probably not even asking Tony Khan. And if I was Tony Khan, I would say no too. Why give the competition who like is actually coming, who is putting on shows? They're doing a Saturday night main event the same day as All In, so All In got moved up to the afternoon. They recently did a house show the same night as a pay-per-view in Orlando. Like, this is not a friendly game, so why be friendly? And why make the Hall of Fame? Really, to me, I'm not even going to watch the Hall of Fame. There's nothing interesting about the Hall of Fame this year. Maybe I would have watched if Sting was there. So I agree. If he did ask Tony Khan and Tony Khan said no, I agree with it. But I think if Sting had really wanted to do it, Sting will do whatever he really wants because he's a multi-millionaire. He'll do whatever he wants, and he could have convinced Tony Khan. I think Sting realizes that this is a wrestling war, and why help out the enemy? It's not like WWE did anything but bring Sting in to do jobs.
Yeah.
So why should he want to help WWE?
Yeah, very, very good points. One of the anticipated jumps from AEW to WWE debuted on Friday on SmackDown, and that was the Luchador Rey Fenix. He got a great reaction, according to Meltzer, although not at the level of Penta when he did. He actually cut a promo at the end of the match after he picked up the win and said he's waited his whole life to say, "I am WWE and Amino." I guess I'm pronouncing that terribly, but it's, according to Dave, going to be a very important catchphrase for him. Again, a good reaction, but not Penta level. Do you see him making a difference at all in that roster, or reteaming with Penta down the line?
I met him before at PCW Ultra, nice guy, but I didn't think any of these guys from the Penta to the, who's the other guy that's holding a title now that I forget his name already.
The in which company?
Penta, Phoenix, and the other guy that got released with him.
Oh,
there was another third guy that AEW was not you. These are all guys that were just sitting out in AEW. Yeah, they got some, but I forgot. I don't even remember the guy's name. It was another guy that was being held hostage by AEW. But it's like they haven't really budged ratings. They got some talk about
Oh,
like
Ricky Saints.
yeah,
That's
Ricky
his name.
Saints. I mean, yeah,
Sorry.
they
Yeah.
gave him a title, but have ratings really been up or down one way or another? No. So it's like these are just mid card guys that you weren't doing anything with. That really, even Paige. I mean, Paige will probably when she jumps over to wherever she's going to jump, some people are going to be like, "Oh wow, Paige is now back with WWE." But it's like, other than the initial, okay. And the more it happens, the less people will care because these guys have just been sitting out. I guess Miro has re-signed too. To me, Miro was publicly humiliated. How could anyone as a man have any respect for me? Anyone that's a man that considers himself somewhat of a man have any respect for Miro after allowing his girlfriend to make? Speaking of people like Chris Candido, he allowed, even work or not. I mean, these guys are all on the road together. He allowed someone to kiss his wife while standing on top of him. To me, like I lost all respect for him as a man for that. So it's not like he'll come back, he'll get some type of a pop, but it's like to me, that's all I can remember him for. The guy that let his wife make out with someone on top of him. Then the wife ended up divorcing him. Now she's back with him. There was some rumors she dated Damian Priest in between. Who knows? But I don't think any of these guys are going to do anything to move numbers one way or another. Some of them may have some success, but to me, Ricky Starks is not the next Steve Austin. Phoenix is not the next Steve Austin. Penta is a good, solid hand, but he's not the next Steve Austin. They're some of them are good hands. They were. I'll agree that all of them were just money down the drain in AEW. They were not being used. They were being paid to do nothing. So they're doing more, which is probably better for their mental health too. So congratulations to all of them. I understand Rusev was making over $1 million in AEW according to Meltzer, and they stopped his push because he was being difficult as far as he didn't want. For some reason, some people in WWE they do jobs all the time, but in AEW I understand this happened with Andrade too. He didn't want to do jobs in AEW, so there was issues. And then they end up jumping back, and then Andrade's done nothing but job in WWE. So again, Rusev didn't want a job in AEW. He sat at home, collected his money, even went back to Bulgaria for a while. But is he going to come back and have a CM Punk like return? No, because he has no buzz about him. He has zero buzz about him. I don't even think it's going to pop a rating when he comes back.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree. I think they picked up Phoenix and Penta because they realize how important the Latino audience is, and Rey Mysterio's got limited years left, and they're trying to create the next Rey Mysterio, which may be a bit of an impossible sort of exercise, but they are definitely aware of their demographics. Here's a story that I know, Hannibal, we've talked about this sort of stuff before, but there it's one thing to pull back the curtain, and then it's another to get into this level of detail on social media and interviews, etc. And I would be speaking about Kevin Owens, a guy who's been in the news a lot lately with his injury. He appeared on Chris Van Fleet's show and said that he deals with comments about body shaming, and he feels comfortable about how he looks, and it doesn't hamper his work. I'll just read you the quote quickly. He goes, "Yeah, I mean, I get it all the time, but really, the people that feel like that's a knock or insult, they're just stupid. I'm so comfortable with how I look. I always have been, which is probably what's driven so many people crazy because my weight has fluctuated over the years for sure. There were times when I was much heavier than I am now, and there were reasons for that. They'll say, well, you aren't working out enough. You were eating like SHIT. Yeah, that's true, but it never hindered my work." Could you see, say, the One Man Gang or King Kong Bundy or Kamala or any of the larger guys saying something like
Yeah,
that?
I personally don't care. My thing about all those guys is they were just larger than life, huge, and characters where he just looks like a normal guy. And that's why I've never been into his character. And again, I anyone that knows me knows I have nothing against him. I'm not like a Vince Russo or an Eric Bischoff that don't like Meltzer. I respect him. Like, I don't know how he feels about me. I've done interviews with him. I like him. I would not be his type of wrestler, but the work rate of the super kicks and the spot fest, I don't like that. So a guy that looks like a normal person doing that, I just have no interest in. And I don't care what he says, and I didn't even hear about that because I just don't care. But let's have some fun here. Here's a fat guy that was larger than life. A fat guy that was larger than life. Abdullah the Butcher. I will admit he had a good gimmick, but a lot of people sent this to me that he posted a picture where he had pissed himself this week. And again, this guy wrestled knowing that he had hepatitis, spread it to various people. There's multiple people he wrestled that ended up having hepatitis, but to me, the reason why he was proven of spreading it in both the US and Canada was because he had assaulted me with a razor blade that he used on himself. DDP's trying, I mean, he's a businessman. He wants to try and get him walking again because he's famous and he'll get publicity if he can get Abdullah walking. Good for him, but the guy is a slime ball. He had numerous properties that he fraudulently and illegally conveyed to avoid paying the judgments against him. And now he's posting pictures with piss all over his pants. So, yes, fans, you can stop sending me that picture now. I've seen it. He's a scumbag. Again, only the good die young. Mean Gene, we lost at a young age. But somehow that piece of shit's still alive.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just fall into the school where I think when they talk about this sort of thing, it's not going to add
Fat
to
shaming
business.
King Kong Bundy. Yeah, King Kong Bundy. Again, these guys are larger than life. It's like, I'm King Kong Bundy. Say what you want, I'll plow you over. No, these comments hurt my feelings.
Exactly, exactly.
And again, to me, wrestler, I come from a school where wrestlers were larger than life. They're the toughest in the world. And yeah, I don't even pay attention to him. He's making millions of dollars. He's a great politician. He's a snake. He's a snake in real life. Kept guys like Cedric Rougeau out of WWE. Whatever. People do it. I heard Sheamus did it with some Ireland people, but it's just the way it is. The business. But good for him. He's made his money. You'll never catch me watching a Will Ospreay or a Kevin Owens match, or like, here's two guys I think I would like as people, the Usos. They seem like I would like hanging out with those guys. They would be my type of people, but they just do a style that I don't like either. That's just my honest to God truth. I like Goldberg. Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, you could say, are my two favorite current wrestlers. That's the type I like. Intense. Those are guys you wouldn't want to fight in real life. They're believable. You're not seeing Imagine Brock Lesnar doing the super kick. You just wouldn't see it. Hello, David. Any thoughts on getting Outback Jack for an interview? If you search Outback Jack, the Hannibal TV, I have interviewed him. I would do another one. I know he had a very shady agent last time that I paid the agent, and the agent did not pay him. So I never dealt with that agent again. I think it was Universal Talent Bookings was the name. I would interview Outback Jack again, but I don't know if they settled up after that. All I know is that there was a big issue with the agent, and I don't know if he's still with or not with that agent. But that's what Outback Jack told me. So I know he was blind or was going blind. He seems like a good guy. He definitely rubbed a lot of people the wrong way in WWE.
Could you just pull that picture of Abdul up again one last time? Not, I. Oh, that's his. That's his chest. He's going to be tripping over those soon. I couldn't figure out what that was, but that's his chest.
I mean
Interesting.
that's one guy that I mean I'll be happy when I hear he's dead. When I wake up and get the news he's dead, I'll actually be like, finally, one less scumbag on the planet.
One interesting story that dropped just last night is concerning Becky Lynch. And it has the fans speculating, is she retired? She announced that and pay careful attention to the wording, that she's not wrestling anymore. She was at an event called the Ultimate Improv Show where she was talking about WrestleMania season. And she said, despite it being WrestleMania, she's not wrestling anymore. And the quote is, "It's WrestleMania season, isn't it now? I'm not wrestling anymore. Maybe one day, but not now. Thank you very much, but my husband is." She can't be hanging it up for good, do you think?
No, I mean she. Didn't they just have a kid or something, or they're trying to have a kid? Her husband's making a lot. She's loaded. She could get a lot of. If I was AEW, I would try and get her. I would dump another 50 or 60 of their dead weight, because they got a lot of dead weight in that company, and I would hire Lynch, because that's someone that would give them some buzz. I don't know long term if would do much, but I mean Mercedes. I would say, even though she really didn't, things have gone down with Mercedes, but Mercedes is still one of the ones that people talk about all the time. So I guess you could say, despite her being overpaid, she's talked about all the time. So I don't, and one thing I think they really wasted, I don't know what you think about this. Why didn't they ever have a Mercedes versus Paige match? Like, those were the two most famous girls in AEW, and they just never had that match. I can't even tell you one match that Mercedes has had, because she hasn't fought anyone with a name that's really memorable. To me, they blew it with the Paige thing, but I would bring in Becky Lynch and have her feud with Mercedes. She'll be back. You don't leave that much money on the table, but at the same time, she's probably taken some time to herself. I think Meltzer has said it, that like, she wouldn't necessarily be the top woman in WWE right now, so this might be a good time for her to take a step back. David, my thoughts on Roxanne Perez. I've heard the name. I don't know exactly who it is. What's the latest on Vince? They're still trying to get it, to get the case against Vince from Janelle Grant moved to arbitration. The judge is taking his or her time to make a ruling on that, but right now everything's waiting on, is it going to go to a lawsuit or arbitration? The other latest is there's been some talk he might be involved in the Saudi Arabia boxing company, and they may actually give him this role because no one's going to care what he's ever been accused of in Saudi Arabia, and it will prevent him from opening a competitive wrestling company. But things are still pretty much up in the air with Vince. And Maurice is doing great. There's a collaboration with this channel and Cheap Heat that's only going to be more and more in the coming weeks. Actually, we all like the Irish here. I actually had a Guinness when I was in Las Vegas at the pool the other week,
Nice.
even though I was supposed to be in training.
Nice. Well, Guinness is good for you, it says.
Exactly. I was told by a Brit that apparently it's good for you, and if you're only going to have one, it's nice and full bodied. So I was thinking of Maurice when I had that. And all we do have a contingent of fans from Ireland, but we're actually by far the most popular in the United States: New York, LA, Dallas. Those are three of our main cities.
Maurice is a very busy man. He's a public servant, but we're going to be expanding our partnership with Cheap Heat, and all I've got to say to the fans is keep tuned, subscribe, and you're going to like what you see. But our last story of this particular broadcast is an interesting one because it appears that Cody Rhodes isn't the only talent that has some perks, and it was disclosed by Gunther himself that as part of his new contract, he was given a tour bus and a separate locker room at every show. Hannibal, I immediately thought about asking you about this. Is that still a situation where you hear about in the 80s when Warrior had his own locker room? Hogan had that there was a heat
But
situation there.
well, now I think a lot of them have buses. We know Cody Rhodes has a bus, CM Punk, a lot of the bigger stars have buses. But to me, would Gunther even draw 500 fans to an indie show? Would he, honestly, would Gunther draw 500 fans to an indie show? I honestly don't think he would. And good for him that he's getting the money and all those perks. But like, say what you want about the Warrior and Hogan, they were stars that deserved that type of treatment. Now I think there's more separation in the levels of talent behind the scene than ever, and more quote unquote divas than ever. I mean, how long has Gunther even been in WWE? To me, he's got a chop. He's got a decent chop. He's skinny. Um, he's not horrible or anything, but to me, it's just like he's blah. Like it's just to me, he's like a mid card guy. It's just like, man, they're spoiled these days if Gunther has
Yeah.
his own bus and private dressing room. Because this guy, you put him on an indie show, you'd be lucky to get 500. The Warrior on an indie show in his prime, he would get thousands. Hogan on an indie show in his prime, he would get thousands. But the guys today in AEW is a good example because they average under 2,000 paid, and they have all these guys. It's like I don't know. To me, they're more divas than ever. They're not like real men. Like in the old days, like imagine Rick Rude. Rick Rude to me was a bigger star than Gunther ever was. Rick Rude seems like the kind of guy that'd be like, you know what, I'm going to change with everyone else. It's just
Mhm.
I don't like the separation in the back, and there's so many there's so much diva-ish behavior in the back these days. But good for guy. I mean, I got nothing against him other than I think he's overrated. I think his legs are so thin that anyone in a real fight with a little bit of amateur experience would just double leg him, double leg ground and pound, double leg ground and pound. That's all I think about when I see a guy with skinny legs like.
And let's not forget his title match.
I'll give it to Brett. And again, Brett probably would have accepted this, but Brett dressed with the boys. Even Sean, Survivor Series 97, you see Brett and Sean, they're dressing with the boy. Like, I mean, there's no camaraderie anymore. And I mean, they're not on the road anymore. It just seems it's such a different business. And it's one of the reasons I don't like it. They're spoiled little, it's not like men's men like Lesnar and Goldberg. Those are two guys that deserve their own dressing room, which they probably get. But those guys would draw. You put Goldberg on an indie show, he's going to draw you thousands. Gunther, again, the smarks will come.
Yeah, and if you look at that match of his against Uso in WrestleMania, the title match, the mid card title, et cetera, that nobody seems to be talking about that one, and that's got to be equal blame on both sides there. Have you heard anybody excited
To
about that
me,
one?
I know Saudi Arabia pays them a lot, but when you had the title versus title match with the two champions and Cody wins clean, it's like to me that's like as clear as day. This other belt is meaningless. Why would people already looked at it as a secondary belt, but then it's like okay, so now what is that the third belt? Because you got Cody Rhodes belt number one, then there's the ultimate Saudi Arabia belt, that's supposedly the most expensive title ever in a museum somewhere in Saudi Arabia. Cody also won that one. You got to say that's number two. Then Gunther probably. I mean, I don't even know who the Intercontinental Champion is these days,
Braun
but to me,
Breaker.
Braun Breaker, yeah, to me, Braun Breaker is more of a star than Gunther, just in
Mhm.
my opinion, and has more potential than Gunther.
Mhm. Well, it certainly they suffer from, I guess, the same sort of thing that AEW ROH does on a lesser level. But I agree with you 100%. Enough with all the belts already. It just creates lesser interest. Except if you were talking about the $1 million championship, that was cool.
The only reason for that second title, from what I understand, is both networks wanted to say they had a world champion. So again, wrestling is more corporate than ever, and that's just another corporate reason. And again, talking about it with you, I mean, to me, there's not even anything that made me want to write down the news this week. So thanks for doing this with me. I know the fans like David. And David, I would like to interview David Sammartino for sure. Hook me up. I know I tried a few years ago and he wanted an outlandish price. I guess whatever. I don't know if he had an inheritance or what, but he wanted like a massive, massive price for an interview. So that's why it hasn't happened yet. But maybe I'll check in with him again as time goes on, because that was about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good one. But fans, we're at the top of the hour of this broadcast. Want to thank you again for tuning in to the news. We would encourage you, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Hannibal TV. Make sure you hit the notification button so you don't miss any of the great content we have coming. And as the sign on the screen says, please give this video a thumbs up, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thank you for watching.